farmers' protest in India, a case of genuine farmers exercising their right to peaceful protest against the recent farm bills, or an act of anti nationalism done by Sikh separatists who just want Khalistan. In this day and age, either one of them may be true. It all depends on the trackers and cookies stored by your internet browser. So let's see what my digital footprint looks like on an Indian political compass. But first, let's see what these bills are.
So let's take a look at these three farming acts that sparked the protest. Each of them deregulates a different part of the system. The first act creates free, unregulated trade spaces outside the markets. The laws in these spaces would override wholesale market rules. And although a lot of trade takes place outside already, what happens in the markets remains a benchmark across the industry. The second act creates a framework for contract farming deals. Any business agreements would be strictly between farmers and traders. The third act affects a different part of the chain. It eliminates the storage limits previously set by the government to control prices. Unlimited storage means that anyone with enough money can stock up. The problem is, without oversight, they can also start dictating prices. Altogether, the three acts invite big players into a fragmented and deregulated market that could lead to volatile prices for farmers.
So, now you know more about these bills than an average Indian journalist or stand-up comedian. So you might be wondering, what's all the fuss about? Why people in turbans are marching to Delhi for anything other than their visa appointment at Canadian embassy? And all this becomes even more confusing when you realize that majority of what's written in these bills is not new and was introduced in Parliament in various iterations, like the Model APMC Act in 2003, Model Rules in 2007, Model Contract Farming Act in 2018, and so on. Even our politicians look quite confused as to where they stand on these bills. Have a look.
सबसे बड़ा डिमेंशन सर एग्रीकल्चर प्राइसिंग का है, द काइंड ऑफ प्राइसेस दैट वी आर गिविंग, और जो इतने सारे कंट्रोल्स हमने एक किसान के ऊपर रखे हुए हैं, इन कंट्रोल्स को भी हटाना पड़ेगा। एक किसान को मंडी में ही जाके बेच सकता है, बाहर क्यों नहीं बेच सकता, दूसरे स्टेट्स में क्यों नहीं बेच सकता, अपने स्टेट में क्यों जितने कंट्रोल्स हमने एक छोटे से किसान पे लगा रखे हैं, उसी सारे कंट्रोल से वो भी दुखी है। आई थिंक उसको वो करने की ज़रूरत है, डीरेगुलेट करने की ज़रूरत है। बहुत सारे सरकार को उसकी सर से उतरने की ज़रूरत है।
हवा में बात करने से क्या फायदा है, कहीं भी बेच लो, कहीं भी बेच लो। अरे कहाँ बेच लें, बताओ तो सही। अब हमारे देश का किसान पूरे देश में कहीं भी बेच सकता है, वो देश का किसान कहीं भी नहीं बेचेगा। उनको भी पता है कि कौन बेचेगा, उनसे पंजाब में खरीदेगा, उत्तर प्रदेश में उनसे 800 रुपए में बेच के वही बड़े बड़े पूंजीपति इतनी महंगाई कर देंगे कि वो पूरे देश के अंदर इसको महंगा बेचेंगे।
Classic politician. By now, you might have a basic idea of what these bills are. But this episode is titled Farmers' Protest and not Farm Bills. So, what I really want to know is what exactly is going wrong with respect to these bills in the Indian agriculture sector. A sector which is so diverse that have farmers ranging from Ortha Punjab to Swadesh. Now, if you belong to the rare species of those people who does not give a shit about what's happening in India because of the substandard journalism prevalent in this country, let me tell you what's happening. In September 2020, Government of India introduced 3 farm bills, and since then, the government is facing a huge backlash from the farming community.
Protests in India turned violent as hundreds of thousands of farmers, some driving tractors,
descended on the capital to protest against changes to agriculture laws.
Farmers fear the reforms to the agricultural industry
will destroy their livelihoods and favour big businesses. Farmers have been demonstrating for months now.
But today's protest is the biggest yet.
The protesters were granted permission by the police to carry out the rally away from central Delhi, where India's 72nd Republic Day parade was underway. Tensions escalated when protesters diverted from agreed-on routes,
broke through police barricades and breached the iconic Red Fort,
a place of great political and historical significance in India.
Batons and tear gas were used by police personnel, outnumbered by the crowds of protesters.
The rallies have been one of the most public signs of discontent with Narendra Modi's government yet.
For the first time in nearly 7 years, his government has been forced to negotiate with protesters. And these images show how hard it will be to find a resolution.
Now, they are saying that Delhi police was not able to control the tractor rally held at 26 January. But we all know that If government really wanted to stop this tractor rally, they should have deployed Delhi traffic police and not Delhi police. This tractor alone is worth 30,000 rupees in challan money for Delhi traffic police. But I must say, these protesters are a bit daft as well. If they really wanted to protest against Delhi police, all they needed was a phalanx of lawyers right in the front. Nothing makes Delhi police much more vulnerable than some good old lawyers. Last time, when lawyers came against the Delhi police, this is how the Delhi police reacted.
दिल्ली पुलिस के जवानों अधिकारियों से आज आप पूछेंगे हाउ इज द जोश, तो वो कहेंगे लो सर। इसी लो जोश और गिरे मोराल के साथ दिल्ली पुलिस खुद डरी हुई है। जिन लोगों पर दिल्ली की सुरक्षा का जिम्मा है वो खुद सिक्योरिटी मांग रहे हैं। ये दिल्ली पुलिस है। कानून के दो रखवाले जब सड़क पर ऐसे लड़ेंगे तो देश की राजधानी की कानून व्यवस्था का भगवान ही मालिक है।
I mean, who wouldn't fear the guys who are so snobby about their profession that they wear their convocation gowns to work? So you might be wondering, the government is now finally listening to its citizens. Well, what can I say? At the time of recording this video, even after 11 sessions of bilateral talks between government and representative of farmers, the end is nowhere in sight. 11 sessions. Come on. The entire constitution of this country was drafted after 11 sessions of Constituent Assembly. The entire constitution. 11 sessions and still no output? I think now I know why British Raj was here for so long. Last 50 years of their rules must have been just discussions on Indian Independence Act and afternoon tea. 11 sessions. I think it's about time that the journalists of this country should stop leaking chats of actors buying 5 grams of recreational drugs and start leaking videos of these sessions. I mean, how can we be sure that they are not there watching Sapna Chaudhary videos? I mean, I would have. So let's see if we can understand more about these bills in the next 5 minutes than what the government has in the 11 sessions. Here's what we're going to do. I will tell you what these bills are, historical connotations regarding them, what's good about these bills, and what both we and the farmers should be worried of. What the government stand on these bills are, and what's the way forward. And
then you have my permission to die.
This was just a reminder that this is still a satire, but more like Mr. May and less like Mr. Clarkson. Act 1, the APMC Act, or the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020. This act provides freedom to farmers to sell their produce outside APMC or mandis. Now, before we go any further, let me tell you what APMC is. APMC stands for Agriculture Produce Market Committee, commonly known as mandis, infrastructure under which a farmer is allowed to sell his or her produce in a regulated manner, overseen by the government. Now, let me show you how culturally these mandis are more Spanish than Diego Costa. APMC was largely enforced in the 1960s to curb farmers' exploitation in a market ridden with famine, poor farming techniques, and zamindari hangover. And I must say, this has established the marketing arm of the agriculture sector in a very structured manner. But as we all know, with great powers come great corruption. So, over the years, even APMC started experiencing cartelization and excessive taxation. This act provides farmers options like direct business at farm gate, cold storage, export, interstate sale, and online trading. And best of all, no state tax, fees, or cess in any other form. Cons includes regulation needs to be more stringent, as asking the buyers just to have PAN is not enough, especially in a country where forgery is almost a national craft. Also, APMC might fade away in future, so this bill needs to be packaged with some perks for them as well. We should not forget their contribution in establishing the marketing arm of Indian agriculture ecosystem. Now, thanks to the first act, farmers are no longer tied with APMCs or mandis to sell their farm goods, which means they will be looking for corporate buyers outside APMCs. In order to facilitate the same, the government introduced this second act, Act 2, the Farmers Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020, which means farmers and corporate buyers can work hand in hand as per contractual agreements. This act provides a framework for contractual agreements which gives surety to farmers even before sowing that there are customers waiting for their farm produce. This act will work as a catalyst to change crop pattern from water extensive paddy crops. So, this act is good, especially when you consider safeguards like price fixing, same day payment to farmers, all dealing on produce only and never on farmers' land. Cons? Well, companies may exploit farmers who are either illiterate or not so proficient in legalities. So, government and judiciary needs to ensure that dispute arising from contractual farming needs to be resolved on priority. However, I think it's about time that our farmers started working on their English level proficiency as well. And I'm happy to report that there are a few who are actually working on it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Baby, never, ever, ever be your fault. Like, baby, 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 all right, baby, 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 no.
Well, moving on. Act 1 made it possible that farmers can send their produce to anyone. Act 2 made it possible to do those transactions under the umbrella of contractual agreement. So, the only thing pending is to check is there something that is holding these corporate buyers or corporations from buying produce in bulk. And yes, there is. The Essential Commodities Act 1955. This act was introduced in 1955 to prohibit the hoarding of essential commodities like food grain. India was experiencing famine, and even the basic food grain like wheat was being imported from USA to feed the Indian population. So, this act made it punishable offense to hoard essential commodities like petroleum products, medicinal drugs, food grains, etc. So, in order to promote investment in the agriculture sector and minimize regulatory interference, an amendment was done in this act. This amendment becomes the third act which was introduced last year, the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020. As per the amendment of the Essential Commodities Act, government has removed the hoarding restrictions on food grain items and have introduced that the restrictions can be made only under two circumstances. First, in case of war, famine, or natural calamity. Second, if government finds that the retail price of food items has observed 100% price hike for horticulture produce and 50% for non-perishable produce over the last 12 months period, then government can declare such items as essential and make their hoarding illegal again till the price fall back to normal. Cons? Well, close monitoring is required in this scenario because even a hike of 49.9% is still quite substantial for most of the Indian population. So, it looked like these bills are also like the recent government policies, right in spirit, wrong in execution. And to be honest, most of us Indians don't give a shit about these bills. In fact, we came to know about this fiasco when an American rapper, Rihanna, tweeted about it. And I would like to give her some credit for that, because India is a pro trolling nation, and posting something critical to India is a very brave thing to do. Just imagine if trolling is a FIFA Women's World Cup, then India is USA. Fortunately, not all of us is like that. Just like the gentleman here, the brown knight, guarding the honor of Rihanna. Geo. You know what? Now that I think of it, Rihanna doesn't seem to be that brave either. Because she asked everyone to start talking about these protests. And when everyone started talking about these protests, she was like, okay, let me now sell this face cream. That's not talking, Rihanna. That's like inviting people for a dinner at your place, and when everyone is having a good time, you get up from your dining table and say, I think I'll hit the beach. So the question is,
where do we go now? Where do we go?
And for that, I would like to quote Assistant Professor Dr. Nivedita Sharma, an IIT and JNU alumni. Contract farming can be a catalyst for the state's agriculture development, but simultaneously can perpetuate socioeconomic differentiation. It is here that the government can play a strategic role to enhance the positive role of contract farming to facilitate agrarian transformation, cutting back on its negative consequences by appropriate regulation, and leveraging of contract farming through policy mechanism for a small farmer benefit. End quote. And you know what? The solution of government working hand in hand with farmers can be applied to all these three bills. In a democratic country, is the discussion between citizens and government that keep the nation going forward. Protests, bandh, dissents are all a good form of demonstration only. And once that is done, once you have the attention of government as well as media, real work needs to be done as well. And I think this is where this country is lacking as a society. Like in this case of farm bills as well, the Supreme Court of India put on hold the implementation of these bills in order to create a committee comprising of agriculture experts to do what? Yes, discussions. And how that's going? Bhupinder Singh Maan, the representative of farmer unions in this committee, withdrew, declaring no participation in any committee whatsoever. In my humble opinion, and with utmost respect to the judiciary of this country, I think we are becoming a nation where policy decisions are being supervised by the judiciary of the country. And I think this is setting a very bad precedence, which may even lead to judicial populism. Now, if I will say I support farmers, then people will call me Khalistani or Papu supporter. And if I'll say that government is doing right with these bills, then people will call me Hindutva, minority lyncher, or whatever. So, can I say something that doesn't offend any of these parties? Well, I can try to be the Indian version of Bill Burr and try to offend both the parties at the same time. So, according to me, the Indian farming sector is so messed up that the farmers are ready to trust state government runs APMCs and central government's MSPs than the free market capitalism. Incredible India. Well, why should I care? This is just a satire. And to be honest, none of us really know about farming that much to pass a credible judgment anyway. You don't agree? Well, try to answer this. When the famous blues singer Bob Dylan decided to retire as a farmer, he bought some around 200 acres of land, sowed some crops, and got a pretty good harvest as well. Things were going good. Then he decided to install a windmill on his farm to save polar bears, obviously. And he bought a wind turbine. Unfortunately for him, it failed to start. Even the technicians were not able to help him start that turbine. He became very furious, and one night, when he drank too much, he drove to his windmill and started cursing and kicking that wind turbine. Why don't you start? What have I done to you? Don't you like me? Why don't you bloody start? And you know what? The wind turbine did answer. Any one of you farm expert want to guess what did the turbine said? Anyone? Well, the turbine in a very deep baritone voice said, Bob, you know me. I'm a huge metal fan. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Have a great night. And have a great day.